Welcome to WLNM, the web novel and manga review, hosted by Zeke Changuris.
Welcome to WLNM, the web, light novel, and manga review. We are dedicated to bringing our listeners the very special artists and writers that are part of this amazing explosion of creativity, giving us stories to entertain and inspire us. We'd like to welcome Jio Kurenai, the author of original English light novel Parable of the Renegades. The plot is about a young man caught up in a world of intrigue, assassinations, and a new subspecies of human, when all he wanted was a break from the boredom of life. So welcome, Jio. Would you say that's an accurate description of, or can you elaborate on that for us a little bit?
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. I really jumped at the opportunity when I saw it, and I really appreciate it. So you got your description was like a little unexpected, but it does sum up the plot in a way, and I was caught off guard with what you said, but I liked it.
I spend a lot of time on Twitter, so crunching things down to 240 characters is something I get used to doing.
Mm.
Yeah. Just elaborate a little bit on it. What's your protagonist like?
So in Parable of the Renegades, it stars a high school student named Lucas Thorne. The best way I'd like to describe him is that he's supposed to represent like people who have dreams, big dreams, but they don't have the drive to fully pursue it. It's like how there are many people who want to be rich, but they don't want to do the hard work that's required to get all that money. Lucas since Parable of the Renegades is a shonen story, Lucas is based on like how most male shonen protagonists are portrayed. Like they're adventurous, they want to become the best at something. And, Lucas himself is no different. He wants these things too, but he's also cautious enough to know that what he wants is going to be, is something like, it's like too dangerous for him, or he might regret it if he still lives. And this is because the world he lives in was recently revealed to be populated by a special subspecies of a rare subspecies of humans called renegades. So they're still human, but they have supernatural abilities if that's the short way to put it. But there's more about them than just supernatural abilities.
Okay.
And like in the beginning of the story, Lucas mostly kept his life stable by not like getting himself involved with anything, and because of that he stayed safe. But at the same time, his life was pretty much uneventful. It's just the same routine every day of going to school, relaxing at home, doing whatever. But the only strange thing about his weekly routine is that every Friday night he fights in underground street fights to earn money. That's the only unusual thing. But even that has what's the word? That now feels dull to him. It's like It's like a boxer choosing to stay in the minor leagues when his skills are enough to be pro.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think an important thing to ask, though, is do you have a nice, cute waifu involved in the story? Because,
Yes. Well, I wrote the story with a female lead in mind as well. So in the beginning of Lucas's adventure, he decides to stop playing safe for once. He decides to actually let his curiosity get the best of him. And what happens is he witnesses an assassin from another nation. Her name is Rio Kyodera. She's a Japanese person, but in the Para Rena universe, that's my shortcut for Parable of the Renegades, just so you know.
Okay.
In the Para Rena universe, she's from a country called Nihon, which is basically a combination of Nihon and Japan put together. So it's my fictional version of Japan. In my universe, every country, or I'm calling them nations, will have will have like slightly corrupted names, or something that reminds you of said country, but it's not exact.
Okay.
This is because I want them to be like a fictional version of themselves. So while I will try to portray them as accurate as I can to their to their main source, I might end up tweaking their culture a bit. That was the main point of instead of saying she's from Japan. So in the story, Lucas witnesses Rio in the middle of her job, which was an assassination gig, and Rio has this policy that no matter that she kills every witness who sees her at work, even if it was by accident. So she ends up hunting Lucas down to his home, and they get into a bit of a scuffle that has a few a little bit of a hot and steamy moment, even though it's not really supposed to be hot and steamy. You should read that part maybe. And after this short scuffle they have, Rio decides that she decides to make a slight exception for Lucas, because there's a quality of his that that interests her. So in exchange for sparing him, she delegates her work to him, which her current assignment is that she was commissioned to assassinate 7 renegades who live all around the world, and one of them just so happened to live near Lucas's hometown. So in exchange for sparing Lucas's life, she makes him take over her assignment to kill those 7 renegades in her place. That's the blackmail. So Lucas has been given like the chance of an adventure, and he cannot just simply refuse, because Rio does something to him that will, like, if he loses, he's as good as he's gone. if he chooses to refuse, I mean.
Right. So he really doesn't. He's not in a position to refuse.
Yeah. Should, I could go into the specifics of that. But,
let's save it for the readers.
Okay, so yeah, the short way to say it is that she has a way that if he refuses, he's dead.
Okay.
So while Lucas will have to do something about fulfilling her assignments, Rio will be like supervising him, and their relationship may be like that of a master and a slave, but it takes on I'd say maybe some interesting turns as the story goes on.
I think he's an assassination intern.
Sort of, but he doesn't know how to assassinate. So Rio just tells him, "I'm not telling you to assassinate them, just kill them."
Okay.
Something like that.
So, were you one of those people who always was a writer or a storyteller? Or was it something that you came into later? Did you always have ideas that you wanted to put down on paper, or is it something that you developed into?
I've been writing stories since I was in grade school, but those were just assignments. So, looking back on the stories I've written back then, they were all very general descriptions, like reading a script, nothing like reading a novel. And in fact, I actually hated novels for the longest time. It was actually how my parents grounded me. Yeah, I'm serious. Whenever I did something wrong, no TV, no video games, but you're going to read this novel and you're going to give me a book report on it. And that was the worst ever, because back then, looking at a novel, I would just see walls of text, and how am I supposed to know what's going on when there's no pictures? That's what I was thinking. That was my mindset back then when I was a kid, until I think it even persisted to high school. But during that time, I was a little bit more okay with reading novels. And when I graduated college, I joined the gaming industry, because that was actually the course I took in college, game design and development. So during my time as a game developer, I actually came up with this idea for a game, a hack and slash game like Devil May Cry. But unfortunately, the way I saw my local gaming industry, they weren't ready to do something like a AAA action game. So, and I didn't want to be in concept depth. Is that the right word to put it? Like, you have a concept, but you just let it rot.
Yes.
I think that's what it's called. So I didn't want to be in concept depth. So I decided, and since I was terrible at drawing, or I can only draw good if I'm given a lot of time, and then and I can only draw something a little decent. So rather than draw manga, I decided to turn this game idea into a novel. So I taught myself how to write novels, and I ended up starting to appreciate them more. I started to become more fond of reading imagery and prose. I only became fond of novels when I was no longer required to read them.
I kind of understand that. My younger brother was like that as well. I mean, I don't think he started actually reading actual books, like real books, until he was in his 30s. I mean, he hated reading. It was just not his thing at all. And now he, reads, and it's one of those things where, wow, see what you've been missing, or at least the portability of what you've been missing. This can suck up hours of time.
Yeah. I decided the Parable of the Renegades was originally the concept for a video game, but as I wrote the story, it completely deviated from the original plot I wrote when I was first thinking of it as a video game. Compare the plot back then to the plot now, I would really laugh at my old plot.
Trust me, there are many of us who would really laugh at the plots of our older stories. I mean, I like you, I started writing when I was young, and to look back at some of the plots were, they're kind of scary. One I remember was, of course, it was completely Macross inspired. And it was, and I didn't know how to break up paragraphs, so the entire thing was one paragraph,
Oh, walls of text were my nightmares when it came to novels, and I definite breaking down my text into paragraphs was one of the first things I wrote. I mean, I learned when I was teaching myself to write.
Yeah. So, what helps inspire you to write? What is it that gets your creativity flowing? For some people, it's something they've watched or something they've read, or what is it?
You can include those two among my inspirations, but most of the time, what inspires me to write is actually when I'm not writing. When I'm doing anything that's not writing, this is actually the time when the ideas come flowing in. Like whenever I'm writing a manuscript and I'm in writer's block, I actually couldn't. I just sit in the front of the computer for maybe an hour and still nothing comes out. But once I'm not writing, like maybe I'm cooking or maybe I'm just driving outside, suddenly everything just comes in. Like, oh my, I gotta get back to my computer right away. It's weird. I only get my best ideas when I'm not writing at all. So whenever I am writing, this is just me trying to remember all of those ideas that came in.
So, have you gotten to that point where you've been writing and you get yourself into that corner that you can't write yourself out of, so you have to go back and change things just to get yourself out of the corner you've written yourself into? Because I find that's the show of a good writer, is when it takes you somewhere you didn't anticipate, and then you're like, oh crap.
There are many. This happens to me all the time. So whenever I feel like I've hit a wall, I'll do anything that's not writing. But whether it be watching a show that I'm currently backlogged in, or reading someone else's work also helps, especially when it comes to prose, because even if no matter how well I write my prose, I always feel like the works I read from others are often better, and that I need to step up to them. So this is why I also enjoy reading the works of others whenever I'm in a relaxed mood. But all in all, the best ideas will always come to me when I least expect it.
So, do you do a lot of revisions as you write, or do you write it out and then go back and just completely shred what you've done. Because some people, they have to keep going, because if they keep going back each time, they'll never get anywhere.
It depends on how much of a wall did I write myself into, because I often like delete chunks maybe of prose, but I won't delete the entire chapter. That never happened. It's always like, this part here doesn't seem to fit well with my vision, so maybe I just need to adjust some parts of it, or maybe delete it completely. But whenever I start every chapter I've written, I've never truly started over on it. There's always a bit of like a plan. Whenever I write my novels, I do my plots. I mean, they're generally planned, but this is like for only the most important parts. I don't plan every single step. Like I mostly come up with the ending first. How would I like this chapter to end? So I could spend the rest of the time fooling around with the reader. And I used to make these plans like concrete, like full, like every single thing I want to happen is all there. But when I'm in the middle of writing it, once I am actually writing it, some other things that could help improve it end up coming out of nowhere, and sometimes it makes me need to make some changes.
Well, how many hours a week would you say you spend working on writing?
Right, I usually take about like 2 hours, at least 2 hours whenever I'm free, because I also have my day job to do, and I also have my like times I'm cooking for my family, and there's also the times I just want to relax and do anything else I want to do. And I think 2 hours is like a good time for me to like get some writing done without feeling burnt out after I'm done, after that time has passed.
Hey, I feel you on having the full plate. I honestly do. You know?
Yeah, but I do often come back, like even after the 2 hours. This doesn't mean I write 2 hours a day only. Sometimes when I really feel like I still have more I could give, I will come back. But I usually take a short break first, like maybe a power nap or maybe a snack or anything I can do to help me freshen up again.
Yeah. I often find some of my best ideas and best motivations happen when I'm busy.
Same.
But if I have a week off, I'll be like, you know what? I could work on this. And then never get to it. Yeah, it's staying motivated at times is difficult. And for some of us, especially those of us who lead busy lives. But because I'm sure there are plenty of people out there with desk drawers, as they used to say. Everyone would have a desk drawer with an unfinished novel in it, and anybody who can carry an idea from beginning to end deserves a lot of respect, because there are a lot of pressures and a lot of distractions in life. Let's see. Have you written something that surprises you? Like you're writing and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I never saw that coming, but it's the natural conclusion to what's happened.
I only have 2 web novels, actually. One is Parable of the Renegades, and the other is a one-shot that I submitted for Honeyfeed's Halloween contest. So this was that contest where you had to make, just a one-shot. It had to be based on Halloween. The name of the title is For Your Smile, My Sweet Little Girl, but don't get me wrong, the title is nothing like what you might expect when you first hear it. In that novel, in that one shot, I took a break from my usual style and I wrote in first person, and I tried to put myself in the shoes of a little girl who seems to be more intelligent than her actual age suggests, and speaks in a pretty high and mighty attitude, like she knows that she's better than many people, she's not afraid to flaunt it. But the story is all about Halloween, and since Halloween's generally supposed to be considered a scary holiday, I wanted to make the story horror, and when I was doing that, I tried to think of monsters that scared me, but you know, whether it didn't matter. In the end, it didn't matter, because no matter what monster scared me, there's gonna be someone for sure who wouldn't be. So I decided to make the horror element of the story the mind of a genuine child, and that's what my main character is. Because I once heard from a video that kids believe that the world revolves around them. They don't care about things that adults would be concerned with, like politics or maybe morals, but most of the time the kids are like, they only care about what's good for them. And when you put that kind of perspective on someone who can think like above other kids, you can potentially end up with a child who is who's really horrifying, but is not a monster at all. Is still a genuine child. I like Parable of the Renegades. I'd also definitely like my people to read my Halloween one shot. It's just one chapter.
It sounds intriguing. What is your favorite kind of scene to write? Are you a good action guy, or are you good? Do you consider yourself easy to write dialogue? What kind of scenes do you gravitate towards?
I want to be good at writing action, because Parable of the Renegades is based on. I wanted to write Parable of the Renegades based on my favorite shonen action, shonen battle manga. So I want to become good at writing action scenes, but I'm not really satisfied with my current skill level yet. I always need to look at references whenever I'm doing these kinds of things. So currently, my greatest strength would probably have to be dialogue, because I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to my prose. So I always tend to repeat I like to repeat what my characters say to each other when they're having some banter, and I ask myself, like, is this like interesting to listen to? Does it sound generic? Does it sound like something I've heard before? So I often find myself editing dialogue the most, because I also need to make sure it matches my character's personality. And I also have to make sure that when you read this out loud, can you say it without running out of breath? Because, this is a character talking after all. So there's many things that I often think about when it comes to dialogue. And I feel like that's my greatest strength when it comes to writing as of now.
Okay. So who do you admire as far as authors go? Who do you read a lot of, or whose writing has had a big impact on you?
This is probably going to be a little surprising, but I don't have any famous mainstream author that I admire, but that doesn't mean like I don't think they're terrible at all. It's just like I didn't. It's because of my favorite authors are those who influenced me to start writing.
Okay.
And the one who made me want to start writing was indie light novelist Brandon Varnell.
Hey, I know Brandon, and he is a terrific author and a prolific one.
Yeah, he's got so many skills that I really wish I had, like how he can write so many words in one day, and how he can juggle so many series at once, and not to mention his prose is the greatest thing I admire about his work. When I was teaching myself to write, Brandon's works were my template. They were what I tried to emulate when I was first teaching myself, and eventually I eventually stopped looking at his works more. I was looking at them less often, basically, and trying to do things my own way. But sometimes when I'm feeling stuck on how to write something, I tend to go back to one of his works and then try to get something out of it.
Yeah. Hey, we all have people that we've tried to model ourselves after, and it's always helpful to have those people to go back. As they say in golf, even the pro golfers go back to the guy who taught them how to play. Yeah, so
Oh,
it's all about, it is all about learning, because you'll never know everything there is to know, and if you need to write something new, you'll have to find someone else to help you, because there are very few people who have that 100% savant natural talent that makes them good at everything. So yeah,
yeah,
that's
agreed.
no one is that
And
student council president in an anime who is good at everything.
and but although Brandon Varnell is the one who got me interested in light novels in general, and also made me enjoy reading novels, the people who made me want to write, I mean, like start actually writing the novel. I think I mentioned that in Brandon. He's like part of it, but I think I would say like the trigger of what made me want to actually start writing would be, one of them is someone you may have interviewed already, Gary Hines.
Yes.
Yes, his work is what made me want to begin putting my ideas down on paper and actually start publishing them online. And also another web novelist who is also on Honeyfeed, Trinity Novels.
All right.
Those two. After reading both of their works, that made me feel like I also want to get into that platform. I want to publish my work online. I want to put I want to stop this idea from rotting in my head and start putting it and start sharing it with the world to see. I'm influenced by indie authors.
Yeah, hey, as you can tell, I completely respect the indie author community, and want to cheerlead their works as much as possible. So, do you have a favorite past or current anime or light novel series that you have really enjoyed?
So in generally, I'm okay with any genre, so long as there's something in its premise that really hooks me in. But I'm someone who got into anime in general by, anime manga, by watching anime adapt from the Shonen Jump magazine.
Okay.
So I'm really a shonen. I'm really like I said. Parable of the Renegades is like based on my favorite battle shonen, and in battle shonen is what got me into manga in general. I wasn't interested at all in anything regarding manga or anime until I was around like halfway done through high school. I was really a cartoon guy throughout my childhood, and to some extent it's still that, but nowadays I'm looking at more manga and anime.
Okay.
So since it's battle shonen, so I know Dragon Ball's often the answer when it comes to people, like what was their main influence, but in my case it wasn't Dragon Ball. In fact, I haven't even watched Dragon Ball other than Team 4 Star's Dragon Ball Z Abridged. That's the only way I know Dragon Ball, actually.
Yeah.
Team 4 Star. It was Naruto that actually got me interested in anime, because it was the talk of my high school. All of my friends in my clique were talking about it, and I wanted to join them, but I had no idea how. So I decided to just start watching Naruto, and then that it all went on from there. Although I wouldn't call Naruto my favorite anime of all time. I noticed the flaws it has, but it holds a special place in my heart, because it's what if it wasn't for Naruto, I probably wouldn't be interested in anime at all, or I'd have to find another example, but Naruto's the one that did it, so
all right.
It holds a special place. But if you want to talk about like my favorite, as in my real favorite anime of all time, I would be debating between Hunter x Hunter and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and currently Black Clover. Those are my top three.
Black Clover has been absolutely an amazing ride.
Yes.
It started, in the beginning, and I'm like, I don't know.
I
but it just got better and better and better.
Let me tell you a little bit about how I see Black Clover. I was a fan of the author's work before. He had a previous manga called Hungry Joker, where it was actually the opposite of Black Clover. It was also a battle manga, but the power source in that series was science. Characters used scientific logic to fight. And unfortunately, it got canceled. But I really loved it so much, even though it only ran 24 chapters. And, I was excited to see what the author would come up with next. And then he made Black Clover. And, what made me really enjoy Black Clover more was that people didn't tell me to watch it or read it. This is some kind of a complex I have for some reason, but whenever people try to recommend something for me, I appreciate it for sure, yes. But it has to be really good if I want to it has to be really good if I want to truly enjoy it, because this is actually the case when it came to My Hero Academia and Demon Slayer. I really enjoy both series, but on both series, people kept recommending it to me like, you have to watch this. You're going to love this guy. You're going to love Bakugo. You're going to love Tanjiro. And that ended up making me set extremely high expectations for them. And if they don't reach it, I ended up not liking them as much as I probably should. When people overhype Demon Slayer episode 19, you've seen that, right?
Yeah.
I watched it, and my reaction was, it's pretty.
Yes.
That's it. That was it.
There was a lot of that in my opinion too, that people thought it might have been like it was the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, It was good. It was creative. I appreciate how they incorporated the different art styles into the scenes, but to me it wasn't the end all be all of and it wasn't like the pinnacle of anime at that point to me. It was pretty, but I think it just means that the people who got overhyped have seen less anime than I have.
They did a really good job. Don't get me wrong.
Yes, they did a great job.
It was pretty. But when it came to Black Clover, since nobody told me to watch it, and all I found online was people bashing it for its first few episodes, and I can agree with them. It was Asta's voice was really terrible in the beginning, but
yes.
as I went on with it, I began to see things that were not on the surface. The thing that I like about Black Clover is that, although I criticize it often for its simple dialogue, that's I said, that's my strength. Behind that simple dialogue and seemingly simple scenes, I end up seeing things like that are going below the surface. Like, this is, as someone who writes a novel, you have to be good at understanding imagery, and Black Clover has really done an exemplary job of making me see things about characters who may seem 2D at first, but when I look more into their actions, I start to see things that they don't literally point out directly, but it feels like true to their character, and it makes me appreciate them more. This is as I think I wouldn't have appreciated them if I wasn't into writing novels, for sure. So this is the kind of thing. And when people say stuff like Black Clover is super generic, the ironic thing when it comes to me is that I don't watch every single anime that comes out, and most of the anime I watch are always those that they stand there. This is super unique and stuff. So when I see Black Clover, as generic as people say it is, to me, Black Clover is actually a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Hey, what really the production staff in itself is what gave me a lot of respect for the show. When I found out that each season they let 2 young animators animate the open. That's why it has so many different opens.
Yeah.
They hand it off to the kids that want to prove that they've got what it takes to move from the in-betweens to character design or keyframes. And that giving people a chance to prove that they've got the ability is, to me, an amazing risk, because some people, if they don't like that open, they're not watching the show.
the Black Clover's anime staff is really getting has a lot of things put up against them. And after I watched the video that detailed that, I gained an even greater respect for the series in general.
Yeah.
So there are so many things, and not it's that's why I consider it one of my favorites, because there are so many. It's really an underdog in the anime, among all anime, and the way it was, and funny enough, the way it was treated in the beginning actually mirrors the main character's struggles throughout his world.
Yes, it does.
He starts off someone being ridiculed, but then as he begins to prove himself, he starts to gain more respect, and even his screaming gets toned down. And
yes,
I even found out why he screams in the first place, and that really hit me hard. Like, he doesn't scream just because it's a generic shonen thing. He has a good reason to do so. And I really appreciated him so much more because of that. Yeah. And he didn't say it. He didn't even literally say it. He just simply showed it. And, novelists you should try to show more often rather than tell.
Yes.
That really struck a chord in me, and I really, that really cemented it as one of my favorites of all time, for sure.
All right. That's great. Thank you very much for talking with me.
Yeah.
Quick disclaimer for the audience: Honey Feed is a subsidiary of Honey's Anime, which I am an editor for. Though this podcast is not connected with Honey's Anime or its parent company, QDOP Inc. If you want to look for some of Jio's work, check out honeyfeed.com or Wattpad, or follow his innermost thoughts and cooking recipes at Jio Kurenai on Twitter. I can't tell you how exciting it is to live in this age. I love that creators get better access to the market, and they don't have to go through the massive publishing complex to get their stories out there. I really appreciate the work and dedication every creator makes to get their work to market. So, until next time, please subscribe to WLNM, where we hope to continue to highlight the best independent creators have to offer. Until next time, keep reading.
This has been a WLNM podcast.